the idea behind that is that these are policies that they've upheld and maybe made some changes to them, but they at least upheld the intent of OPA 11, which was local decision-making control and growth initiatives. So the province did support the waterfront designation, although they're subject to some comments below, which we'll deal with. They did approve the residential concepts, although we just talked about the rural cluster, they want 3 instead of 5. And they've approved new development around Muskrat Lake, but subject to a policy that they've proposed. And we're going to talk about that as well in a few minutes. The next slide is the negatives. These are modifications that Brian and I don't support, and these are modifications that lead us away from the direction of OPA 11. And we felt that we would like to raise these with you folks tonight. The first one was that the ministry's proposed modification would permit existing and new agricultural uses in the waterfront designation. And we've recommended only permitting existing agriculture. So these are areas where they're waterfront areas geared to tourist, commercial, residential, and the idea was to allow existing agriculture, but we thought that a new agriculture operation might not be compatible with the intent of that waterfront designation. So we felt that we would like to recommend retaining the language of the OPA 11 as adopted. MMH proposed modification would limit lot creation to 3 lots, not 5 per holding in waterfront designation. And again, this is back to this magic number 3, and this number will come up a number of times in our discussion. And the MMH proposed modification would add a new section to the natural heritage feature and area. And I'm not going to go through the document, that OPA 11, it might be quicker to do it this way. We didn't put this natural heritage feature area policy in the plan. What we found is that the province was using OPA 11 to insert some of the policies that they wanted to insert that weren't requested by us. And so our position is that this was not part of OPA 11, but folks, that and some other ones are going to come up at the 5-year review of our county official plan. In the fullness of time, we're going to come out to talk to you about what the province is thinking of OPA 11. Wait till you see what they're thinking of the county Renfrew official plan. So we felt that stay away from some of those issues for this official plan amendment number 11. So that's our recommendation there. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. I don't mean to hold you up. So if really Amendment 11, you've talked about the provincial policy statement changing a few times in the last 10 years or whatever, and when we've got that policy could really change Amendment 11 in the long run, as could the county plan. So it starts dwindling the value of Amendment 11 and what we're signing, because it's last on the list for priority if you guys all start changing things at the county level and the province changes it at the provincial level. These rights that were being offered to govern locally don't sound too secure to me. Could you touch on that?
Yes, I can. When OPA 11 started, the policy environment of the province was a little different from now. It was still tough, but it's gotten tougher, and there were some good principles at play here in OPA 11. With the 2014 PPS and with the province's comments on our county Renfrew official plan, some of the things you wanted to do in OPA 11 they're made more difficult, almost like the rug pulled out from under you. And one of my suggestions at the end of this presentation is that you may want to hear what we have to say about the 5-year review to the county OP before you go too far on OPA 11, and we would be glad to do that. And you're going to see that. And I had a point somewhere in the presentation where I was going to reference a figure in Greek mythology, the gentleman who rolls the rock up the hill and then it just rolls back down again, and he keeps trying to get the rock up the hill and it keeps rolling back down again. And sometimes I feel like that in trying to move things like this through the process. I feel some of that as well.
Yeah, I think the general public feels that too. And I'm going to ask you straight out, do you see this as a trend to go into regional government and eliminating this chambers right here?
That is something I've not even thought about. So no, I haven't.
First one there says already existing and new agricultural uses. We don't like that idea.
Yeah, Brian, do you want to speak to that a little more?
The intent here of the waterfront designation is to promote residential, recreational, and resort development. And the thinking is that although we do have agricultural uses in the waterfront area, that they should continue to exist. But if somebody wanted to put up a intensive farm operation in a waterfront area, the thinking would be like, you know, a dairy barn or a pig farm or something, that they'd be encouraged to locate in the rural or agricultural designation.
Well, these farmlands already exist.
Oh yeah, and then nothing's gonna change that. I mean, agriculture is
Do you have any
a huge
idea how
part.
much tourism gives into Medford County? How much money?
I don't know exactly,
I think agriculture.
but if you're comparing it to agriculture, I think agriculture probably went out.
Yeah, it does. I know, but you have a farm there and you want to build a new building. It's been there. The farm was there before there was a designation of water use.
Correct.
What do you call it?
Yeah,
So you would be a little bit. I mean, you probably farmed that farm for a couple hundred years, your family.
totally.
And then you said you can't.
And nothing's
build a
going to
barn?
change that.
I know, but if you want to build a new facility, and we're really pushed by the environment on what you can do, everything.
Right.
When you build a new building, you know how much stuff goes into manure storage, runoff, more than
Okay.
a cluster of houses.
Well,
Just saying.
council decide. I mean, the province is. This is a situation where the province is agreeing with you and saying that they want. What is the wording they want?
I can just refer to the document. So the policy in question says the waterfront designation identifies shoreline communities along both the Ottawa River and significant lakes within the Township of Whitewater region. These communities are composed of low-density residential, recreational, tourist commercial, and resort development. That was OPA 11 as proposed, and the province has put as well as agricultural uses.
So the other option would be to avoid designating intensive farming operations as waterfront as well, like if they're existing. Or the other option is to just allow farming in the waterfront.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing by what I'm hearing is that they're going to try and stop existing from expanding. And I don't think anybody would be looking at putting up a huge agricultural anything right tight to the waterfront because of the hoops they'd have to jump through would be extraordinary in cost. But we don't want to stop what's happening now. We feel that that's extremely important, as our farming area is huge and important to us, as Dave has mentioned, Councillor Dave has mentioned. And my take of what you were doing there was when you say no new, I get in my mind that no clearing in that additional farmland in marginal areas is what I was trying to say. So I'm not right in that?
What it would mean is it could evolve as you're suggesting. It could potentially affect expansions and new intensive farm operations.
We definitely want to be careful with how that's worded, because we don't want that to really happen, right?
Okay, well, I mean,
That's duly noted here.
just,
So
just give us some direction.
I got the message.
Well, I personally feel that we have to protect the rights of who's there, and I don't really think that there's anything that would allow anybody to start clearing land or anything, so that would be removed automatically. But we could also maybe involve with existing farming that recommended that no large operations be right tight to shorelines. That should be back more than the 10 meters. But I think
We know where these operations are, don't we?
yeah,
You know, like, we can look at them and
yeah,
take them out of waterfront.
because
Or if you want to direct us to accommodate agricultural uses in the waterfront, it's not something we're gonna.
no, I know you're not going to argue too much with
Yeah.
that, but it's just that we have to protect the rights of our agriculture and landowners. Really have to protect that because we can't be pushed around by Toronto on those items. So it just has to be worded right.
And actually, to be fair to Toronto, and actually it's Kingston that this stuff comes out of, but to be fair to Kingston, they wanted the agriculture in. So it's duly noted.
Judges.
You're always right now. I was just going to say that anytime they want to make a decision in Toronto or anywhere for agricultural land, they never offer to pay for it. If they want to take away this land or take out this thing, they want to save the bottling, but they don't want to offer you any money to save these birds. So these projects always come in, but nobody pays us, and that causes a lot of turmoil right there.
So the next slide, another draft decision that was reflecting, the latest provincial policy. MMH proposed modifications would establish new municipal and private services policies. We recommend against this modification. This was not part of OP 11, and it's going to come down at the County of Renfrew Official Plan 5E review, and we can talk about it at that point. So we want to keep the two documents separate, and we feel we'd like to go back to the province and say no to this, but it'll be some things that they'll be wanting us to look at the 5-year review. Map schedule. This is where I got some maps. I got a bit of a mapping program here to run for you. We just talked about the policies, the text. There's the maps, the 70-30 split that we talked about. So MMEH, one of the first bullets would proposed modification would reinstate the agriculture designation and reduce the width of the proposed waterfront designation on the western shore of Muskrat Lake. We recommend against that, and we recommend keeping the proposed waterfront designation as originally outlined in OPA 11, and I'm going to show you a map in a few seconds on that. The MMH modification would also reinstate various mineral aggregate designations that were proposed to be removed on OPA 11. Staff recommends against at least reinstating the mineral aggregate designation around the Raqua Bay and Olmsted Jeffrey Lake. And MMH proposed modification would reinstate the settlement area boundaries for Beachburg and Cobden. So what I'll do is I'll take you through those on a map to give you a little better idea of what we're talking about. It just takes a second to spin up here. So this map schedule is the Whitewater region enlargement for the changes that were made through Official Plan Amendment number 11. And what's proposed around Muskrat Lake and the other water bodies, but we're talking about Muskrat Lake here, is this waterfront designation that we've been talking about. And there's the one on the eastern side, and there's the one on this western side. And the proposal is to have there's a very thin strip of rural right there, have this waterfront designation extended back about 400 meters from the lake, and provide for those uses in the waterfront designation that we were talking about, the tourist commercial, the residential. And this was all about allowing development around the lake with environmental controls, mind you, and it was part of the growth development principle of OPA 11. The province came back and said they want the agriculture designation as it now applies to that part of Muskrat Lake to stay where it is. And I'm just putting up here the current official plan. So this is the current County Renfrew Official Plan right now with respect to the agriculture designation in reference to the Muskrat Lake. So there's Muskrat Lake. This green is this is the highway. This is the agriculture designation, and there's already now a little thin strip of rural along there that might be used for development in the future. The province wants us to go with that. They want the agriculture to stay as it is and not go with the waterfront designation that was proposed. You remember that strip that I showed, the dark gray? That's what they want to go with. And I think that defeats one of the purposes of OPA 11, which was to put a waterfront designation on there for future development.
Yeah, that's not acceptable at all. If we go with the proposal that we have for development, that doesn't mean any farmer has to stop farming at the original area. So it also means that if a farmer, to gain extra income or retirement, wants to develop that section that you have put out in the proposal, they would then be able to do that. So that little presentation right there means that we have nothing to offer, but the one OP11 or whatever has something to offer. So quit looking at that area and tell me, is this not what we don't want?
Well, we want to develop. Bottom line is, we want to develop Muskrat Lake, and we feel very strongly about where we've been with Muskrat Lake, how we got here, and the fact that you don't want to talk about the fish and the trout and the sensitive lake. And this is a very small consolation prize to what we should have, like other communities with lakes, because we don't believe in the science of Muskrat Lake. We believe we got a heck of a problem that we'd like some help with, but we don't believe in the lines that were drawn around it, and that sentiment is throughout the community. That's a big issue for everybody.
And I think we're going to cover that a little bit later.
And go back to the other slide, because that's what we want.
Just give me, let me do that. So
this is the proposal.
I don't know if I need to blow that up, but that's that strip there, that gray strip.
That allows us to have development.
Yeah, this gray strip is the waterfront designation. 300 to 400 meters area. The width of that is 400 meters. Just building a lot of potential.
But that's the we can develop.
Yeah. So, Muskrat Lake is going to come up very shortly. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, in that 400 meters, we should maybe talk to the people who own the land along there, see what their thoughts is on that. The farmland along there, because
we did have the public meetings on OPA 11, but I think where the direction is that existing agriculture uses are going to be permitted in the waterfront designation, so they're not being affected. They would still be able to farm within that gray strip. What it would do is it allow somebody to contemplate a development that is non-agriculture.
So you support that, really. It's just that we didn't get it.
Well, that's right. That's not.
That's the bottom line on that one.
Our goal here is to, as we go through the process of it, if we're directed to, we would get back in touch with the province and say, we've spoken to council, and this is their direction on your modifications. 1A, 1B is okay, but we don't like 3C, we don't like 4D, and that's go through that process.
That's what I would like to see done on this issue. It's my personal opinion.
Okay. So the other map I'm going to show you is the mineral aggregate. So we had proposed to remove some mineral aggregate designation from the current official plan. And mineral aggregate is a very important resource. If you don't have aggregate, you don't build. You don't build roads. It's the oil of the construction industry. So it's important to protect the important deposits of the resource. We noted some areas in the county OP right now which really shouldn't be aggregate. It didn't make any sense, and so we asked the province, can we go to the different designations for these? They didn't buy all our proposals. They didn't buy any of them, actually. But there's two that we feel strongly that we would like to go back to them and talk to them. The one is this area of the township right here. So this is an excerpt from the existing official plan. This gray area is the mineral aggregate designation. This is La Croix Bay and Greenway Drive. And our feeling was that this is an area with a lot of residential development. You're in the floodplain of the Ottawa River, and it's an aggregate designation that shouldn't really be there in our opinion. We asked them to take it out, and their position was, no, it's aggregate designation that's in place now stays. So we would like to talk to the province about that particular situation. The other area we'd like to talk to the province about is we were thinking of this is Olmsted, Jeffrey Lake, and Garden Lake, the highway. A lot of lines in there. The highway comes through there, so there's some good aggregate in those hills there in that area, and that's fine. And that's given the fact that Highway 17 is right there, you're going to want some good aggregate. But the deposit also gets pretty close to the waterfront, and our thoughts were, can we kind of maybe have some of this designated waterfront designation, which actually is good for the current folks, because if a gravel pit goes in next door, it's not the greatest land use. So we've put this to the province, and they didn't accept it. I'll show you what our proposal was for that area. So this is the proposed Schedule A for OPA 11 that we sent to the province. And just bear with me again. So what we've done is, on this instead of running the aggregate close down to the lake that it is in the current official plan, we proposed a kind of a strip of waterfront designation along the lake, and then the aggregate towards the highway. And we thought that was reasonable. They didn't like it, but I think we should question that. Yeah. And then
Isn't there waterfront on the other side of the lake? The waterfront designation.
Oh, that's good. That's
We just followed the road.
oh, I see it. There's a road there.
But on the other side of the road, Jeffrey's
If
Lake.
it's waterfront, if it's a back lot on waterfront, then the lots have to be 2.5 acres. If it's rural, it's only 1 acre.
Okay.
So if it's rural on the other side and somebody wants a lot, they only have to get 1 acre.
So another issue was the village community designation. So Cobden is designated village community, which originally was this sort of area here, and that's the built-up serviced area. Under OPA 11, there was a proposal to, there's the church and the fairgrounds and these lands in here, to put that in the village community designation. The province did not accept that, and for now, we can live with that, at least as a staff. You folks can think about it, but well, that's right. Brian talked about to expand that kind of area, you'd need to do a comprehensive review. They want to know, why do you want to expand a village? What is the servicing? What is the future growth arrangements, and so forth and so on. So they put you through your paces. But what we would like them to do, yes, sir.
Are we referring to what we call the Bennett property and
It could be.
and around the agricultural?
So the proposal was to put that in village community under OPA 11.
Right.
Yeah, and the province said no.
They said no.
Yeah.
That's
Put
a
it back
big
in.
problem as well. You're going to have to. We can't accept that. We've got plans for that land.
But it's not agricultural.
Huge
I
plan.
understand it's rural, right?
It's rural.
Currently
It's
it's
rural.
rural, it's not ag.
It's rural.
So there is a difference. You can develop on rural, you can't develop on ag.
So
Okay,
it's
so we
going.
can it can be developed, not us.
Well, there's some issues around that.
Gotta get them out of there.
Yeah, that if it's on private services abutting a full service area, there could be issues with developing that property.
We'll be on
We don't
public
want that.
services.
For that, I think.
My understanding is they're not proposing public services for some of their development there. But
That's way back at the end.
yes, but the problem is as well, so if we did keep it the way you're proposing, then they would have to be on public services.
Correct. Yes.
But if it goes back to the way it was, then it couldn't be on private services.
It may have difficulties on private services because it's abutting a full service area. And
So then why aren't they allowing you to extend it?
I guess they want more, Ryan talked about a comprehensive view, they may want more information as to why do you want to expand a settlement boundary.
Yeah,
Okay, so whenever we do get the proposal for a development there, what are the restrictions going to be compared to if it was in the development area and if it wasn't? Is there going to make a difference? Which way is better for the developer, in other words?
Well, that you'd have to ask the developer. They may want to go on private services, but from the municipality's point of view, if they go in on private services beside your built-up area, and you do want to expand Cobden in a few years, you've got a area on well and septic that's you're going to have to leapfrog the surfaces, and it could be a very costly experience. So there's a lot of issues around this particular file and that particular property, and there's some challenges there.
The experience across the province is where development has been allowed to occur adjacent to urban areas on private services, either or water only, that over time, if there are environmental issues, then the municipality is on the hook for extending the services, or demands are placed on the municipality for extending services. And there's been so many situations like that that the province comes up with these rigid requirements. Comprehensive review is challenging. But one of the
well, I see that in the larger areas where, even between Canada and Nepean, where the development was next to nothing, and then all of a sudden, boom, 1 year it's, 100 homes, and next year it's another 100 homes, and it keeps on booming. In the last 20 years, that whole development has expanded dramatically. We're not going to see that. We haven't seen huge development in Cobden for decades.
The village community designation, both Beachburg and Cobden, are based on the geographic limits of the former municipalities.
Right.
There isn't any planning basis or rationale for that designation.
No.
Now that you're amalgamated, there's an opportunity to identify where the village community could be. If you want to allow development here on full services, then it might mean that you might have to change the line somewhere else. But at the end of the day, for the comprehensive review, and this official plan amendment could be considered a comprehensive review, but it would be like doing a feedback loop and coming up with growth projections for the urban area and identifying areas where the village is going to grow and designating those areas. So it's like you have an opportunity to go that path, but it would probably delay the process a year.
I agree.
I'm somewhat confused. If an official plan, is it not written? Like you started this conversation off with, it's about your future. It's about what you want to do down the road. I'm really confused because I don't see where we can do anything. And I see other areas in Ontario just growing to no end. Why will our plan not allow this?
Well,
why are we being denied all this?
The future is yours, but I talked about the provincial role in planning, and they play a strong role.
There's no future for Whitewater to decide these things, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Like,
I think what I meant.
Can you tell me that we're going to decide some of this here?
Well, there are some issues that are on the table for you to discuss, and those were the things that we feel picking your battles, and that's what we're trying to subtly tell you that there's some things that just may not.
More than some, Charles.
Well, that's good. At the end of the day, I hope I've made myself clear.
Yeah, we're starting to get it.
That is, I think, part of the discussion that has to take place. That you have to understand the pressures that we work under, and we understand what you guys are thinking, and we're trying to work a balance out between all these interests. There's the provincial interest, and there's your interest, and we're trying to struggle through them.
This designation here, I feel fairly important for us in the future because we will be having the capabilities with our sewer plant to be able to handle them, and I think developers that are coming into this area will have to be on our system by our choice because we can't afford to do all that we're doing and not have them part of it. That has to be very well stated. So that would be our battle to go through, that we want our expansion of our urban areas to be on our system, to pay for our system, to reduce the costs to the people that are there now. And if the province, tell me the province can see that and has logic within it. There may be in the development requirements after a buffer zone beyond where our system could handle it, there may be a requirement then for a developer to ask for wells and septics, but that would only be after they got past the point that we could service them with our system. That's what I would feel to be the requirement.
If I may, the sewage treatment plant project is a 4-year project. So to do this comprehensive review would take, it would delay OPA 11. But there is time to, once the plan, should you decide to move forward with OPA 11 or whatever, it gets in place, you can still monitor and amend your plan from time to time. So you could run another amendment process to piggyback and do a comprehensive review of Cobden and where it should grow, and it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Can we in this process leave a statement that this is where we want to go? We're going to go with this at this point, but be it known in the future this has to expand, or is that even sensible?
This area down here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can report back to the province. Well, what
could happen is you could identify, like we could create a special designation, like as a hatch or something, and identify it as an area where. But the only downside of that, I've done this before, I've seen it before, is it flags an area for future development, but what it does in the interim is no development until that is completed. If you follow what I'm saying. So what it's really doing is identifying an area. I mean, Cobden, you got the lake on one side, you got Bromley on the other, you got Rock to the north or towards Pembroke. This is the only part of Cobden.
Yeah, don't take that on us.
That's sort of, and the reason why the line goes down the middle is because wherever a designation doesn't follow a property line or a lot line or a fixed structure, there's some interpretation that can be implemented. So it adds some flexibility, and that's why it was done that way. So it would provide, if something came along that was rural outside of that, you could consider it. If it was some in urban that you wanted to go out, you could go out even further. But we could look at some kind of if council want us to do that, to protect that area for future urban development. That could be done.
Just on the mayor's point, you raised about making use of available and existing infrastructure. That is one of the principles of provincial planning, which is a good one. That if you've invested money in municipal infrastructure, you want to get the use out of it. You want to get people hooked up to it. So that's another principle that's there.
But the messaging that would go out is that council has identified this area as the greatest opportunity for expansion of the village, and that you would want to be able to evaluate any development proposals on full services
in the future.
Okay, that
would work for me. That would work for me. Absolutely.
Okay. So it would be a special policy.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Hope I didn't raise my voice too much, Reeve Miller. Okay, good. So where the heck are we? There's one other area. So yes, sewage treatment plant. That's what started this slide. So this is the sewage treatment plant, and it is in the current official plan rural, and that should be village community. It should be within the Cobden. It's just a thing we'd like to clean up.
Actually, it's in the former township of Rock.
Yeah. So, but it should be connected with the Cobden designation of village community. So we're proposing that. We would take that back to the province. There's one other one which I'll just talk about very briefly. Just bear with me here. I'm going towards the industrial park.
Well, turn right.
Yeah. There we go. So this is OPA 11, and the industrial park is designated rural. And when the county OP was done, for whatever reason, there was a mistake made. Part of that industrial park was designated agriculture, and it shouldn't have been. And these things happen from time to time. We see this as an opportunity to clean that up and put the industrial park into rural and get it out of agriculture. So we're going to take that to the province. Okay, I'll just get
Was
back.
there any changes with Beachburg Village as well?
There was, actually, just zoom in.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, sorry, I'll have to go, this is set up that there's a map, and then I got to click on the map to get this little tool here. Just
go to where the Beachburg restaurant.
Brian is like a back, what is it? He's driving from the back seat here.
Backseat driver.
Yeah, backseat driver. So you want to point, is that area there?
That's the area. Can you zoom in a bit on that?
Yeah.
Okay, that village community where the arrow goes, that is currently agriculture. And it's between that, and I forget the name of the farmer that owns that property. Yeah, but he actually came and asked us to have it designated. And then right at the junction of La Paz Road and, what is it, Glen Road? There's a little triangle in there. That was agriculture too, and he owns that. So he had asked us to have that area included in the village community. Because what happens is, like, there's been a proposal on the other side of the road. So if you extend the water out to do one side of the road, it'd be nice to be able to loop it and come back the other side, right? And so there's some thinking behind that. Province identified it and said, no, we need a comprehensive review. So, I mean, to do a comprehensive review for that would be a challenge, because there's only one service in Beachburg, and then you'd be into debates with them about whether it's what's the wording on one service, minor extension,
Or rounding out.
rounding out.
Yeah.
Well, it could be rounding out. The other areas where the other village community, the triangle,
Is that right there?
yeah, that's currently rural. So I just sort of filled it in. I mean, it doesn't, it's no specific reason, just to round it out. And they said, no, you can't do that. So.
It's rural now, and we're bullheaded, it'll stay rural.
Well, most of Beachburg, like a lot of Beachburg is rural.
Yeah.
So but it's just the former village limits, right? And we were just
That's exactly correct.
rounding them out a little bit to square them up.
Where you go down the Anderson Road, everything on the south side was Westmead Township, and everything on the northwest side or northeast side was the village of Beachburg.
Well, actually, what it would be over about 200 acres of land as you're coming into Beachburg.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all farms in there.
Yes, that's correct. Along the
Right
county
in there.
road,
It's all
there.
farms
Yeah,
in there.
But
So,
Beachburg really went. Where did we go to that?
Sorry, yes.
I was just going to say that Beachburg's the 11th fastest growing community in Ontario. Just want to say it.
Thank you.
And that's actually correct in 2014.
Good. So we're going to recap. We'll probably not fight those ones, but we want to keep the Cobden area and maybe propose a special policy area for that particular spot. Okay, we'll do that.
In the Beachburg area, the growth area is out on this side anyway, and you've got it designated all
Okay.
set, so that should suit everything there.
So I think we're now going to talk a little bit about Muskrat Lake, and this is the second to last slide. So, Brian, do you want to introduce this?
my pleasure. Probably the most controversial of all the policies in the official plan has certainly got the most attention. Is the Muskrat Lake policies. Just by way of history, in the first draft of the official plan, when we drafted them, there was a recommendation for a study. If you wanted a lot, you'd had to do a study, and that was doomed to failure. And at some point, the committee, it came to their attention that A fellow named Mike Michalski was out there, and Mike's got a long history of working with waterfront development and dealing with the Ministry of the Environment. Actually, you know, he's sort of like a hired gun, if I could say that. He's a heavy hitter when it comes to challenging the Ministry of the Environment on the whole at-capacity lake issue. And Victor Castro and Mike Michalski have fought it out at different OMB hearings over the years. And the one that Mike keeps referring to is Limerick Lake, which is an at-capacity lake in eastern Ontario. And what the philosophy that Mike has introduced as a good one is that the settlements that have been achieved on these site-specific subdivision proposals has been one of applying those settlements to a lake situation in an official plan. It's the first and only time that this has ever been done. This is precedent-setting, provincially precedent-setting policy. There's dozens and dozens of lake trout lakes and perhaps hundreds of lake trout lakes in Ontario, and none of them are allowed to develop one lot unless the septic system is 300 meters back or you're separating two existing dwellings. In the case of Muskrat Lake, it's an at-capacity lake, but even if it wasn't an at-capacity lake, technically the provincial policy statement, it doesn't, under the provincial policy statement, it doesn't qualify for development because under the water policies of the provincial policy statement, it makes reference to the Lake Capacity Handbook. And the Lake Capacity Handbook has criteria for determining what lakes can be developed and what lakes can't be developed based on water quality. And Muskrat Lake would not qualify. So even if it wasn't an at-capacity lake, and actually the lake trout issue is not a planning issue. It's more of a Ministry of Natural Resources program. If there was to be a challenge on, and the public doesn't want it as a lake trout lake and managed, then that's a matter of the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Minister of Natural Resources. So that's when we were dealing with Mr. Michalski, he quickly deflected it and said, no, that's nothing that he can do. It's nothing I can do as consultants or advisors to you. It's a program operated by the government, provincial government, and it's a political matter if you want to have that changed. But when it comes to development, Michalski's approach is an approach that would allow development, and this is the philosophy. There are technological means, and very simple means, that can allow municipalities to develop along shorelines without adversely affecting the water quality of the lake. It's there. And it's simple. It's the type of soils you use for the construction of your septic system. So rather than actually doing a study, what Michalski's saying is, don't bother with the study, just implement the recommendations of the study. So the recommendations of the study are essentially, if you're developing a lot and you construct your septic system with soils with high aluminum and iron content, it's been scientifically proven that the phosphorus will bind to those chemical properties and not move. It's that simple. It's not any special system. It's a conventional system. It's just a matter of using the correct soils, and they're called B horizon. And for those who don't know what a B horizon is, it's topsoil is A horizon, and the B horizon is below the topsoil. And if you're ever at a gravel pit and you see the reddish tinge in the soil, or orange tinge, the rusty color, that's the type of material that we're talking about. It has high iron content, and it's found typically in areas that have Canadian Shield type conditions. So, so that's the thinking behind it. So, after Michalski was retained, we had a meeting in Bancroft with myself, Mr. Michalski, Peter Taylor, and Victor Castro from the Ministry of the Environment. Peter Taylor is Victor's boss, and Rick Watchhorn from the Ministry of Natural Resources. And and I should say Victor Castro is excellent to deal with. Smart fella, presents well, very practical. As far as ministry people go in dealing with them, we wouldn't have been able, I don't think, to come to this policy framework without his cooperation. But he realizes that Muskrat Lake is in such a situation where the introduction of some development like this on a limited basis, on a trial basis, is not going to swing the balance of the water quality in the lake, right? So the lake is that far advanced in its degradation and eutrophication. So, but the first thing that come out of their mouth is like, so if we, and you got to, if we allow you to have development on the lake, what's the township doing? What are they giving back? So, in other words, in order for them to justify
the OPP in its entirety.
No, but it's quid pro quo is what they're saying. It's horse trading. We'll give you something, you give something back. What are you prepared to give back? I'm just saying, and that's the approach that they said. And I was kind of surprised and interested. And following the meeting, they actually had a summary of ideas that they thought could be considered by the municipality, the toolbox, if you will. And we were authorized to take a look at that toolbox and come up with an evaluation of the implications of what would be involved in implementing the various mitigation measures. And that's how the list came up. And one of the other recommendations that they had was to have a symposium that we did have in the year 2014, I think it was. Was it 13? 13, wow. October 5th, 2013. And that's how that symposium was initiated, and from there the Watershed Council was formed. And so that's how it got developed. So there's two elements to the policy. One is the development control framework that Mr. Mikowski recommended. So whenever there's a development that's proposed, the owner will be required to submit a plan that shows vegetated buffering along the shoreline, the septic where the septic system will go, and the site details in the building and the house, like a site plan, and indicate how the septic system will be developed. That plan comes into the municipality, gets peer reviewed, and then the permit's issued. So it's a much simpler process than requiring somebody to actually do a study.
So they'll give us development.
Right.
If we give them the environmental plan that you just described on the septics and the soils and all that, and we give them the support to the Watershed Council, that was part written right into the plan, right?
There's the sewage treatment plant and
a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
So we're right. We got to have the Watershed Council. Does that not lean towards somewhat the municipality taking, if not full responsibility for the cleanup at the lake at this point? That's sort of wiping the board clean here, and we'll give you lots, but you sign on to the Watershed Council, and now that's a whitewater problem. I'm concerned about that.
No. I think that's an oversimplification. I think there's things that the municipality can do to improve water quality, and they're laid out in the plan.
They're on the slide.
Okay. But there's a lot more that other people can do too. I mean, it's pretty much everybody needs to work together to achieve a problem, and it's not a short-term solution. My suggestion is that, and then the 10 lots, there's the 10 lot matter too, right? So in our discussions with the ministry, they said 5 to 10, right? So obviously we picked 10, but when you consider 10, consider it in the context of your development in your whole municipality. And as part of OPA 11, when it was adopted, we prepared a sort of growth scenario showing how And as part of the official plan process, we didn't have growth projections, we had a growth target. And the growth target was in 20 years to have a population of 10,000 people. That's seasonal and permanent, about 6,800 now. So we looked at 5-year development activity between 09 and 13, 14, and you're doing about 30 houses a year. So, but if you're able to get 10 lots a year on Muskrat, you get 10 lots a year in Cobden, and you're doing 25 lots a year in the rural area, and more lots in the waterfront area. That's a lot. That's a lot of development activity for Whitewater.
But we're pretty restricted on the next year. There's no guarantee we're getting a second 10 lots period,
is there? So the
concern
is, okay, it gets in place, you get 10 lots, and then boom, they pull the rug.
Yep.
Well, first of all, the sewage treatment plant is a 4-year program, and that's part of it. You've got Watershed Council with funding, implementing programs outside of your municipality in the agricultural area with controlled tile drainage. What better situation can you have than that? Because there's nothing you as a municipality can do outside of your municipal jurisdiction. But you can have a partnership with other organizations to help improve water quality without having to do it yourself. The other is, the real sensitive one is septic systems, right? Septic inspections, and because of, the sensitivity of it. But it's not, I've been, Victor gave me a whole series of examples of how that's been implemented in Ontario, and you can design a program for septic inspections that you don't have to. The first year you might only look at properties that you have no records for, or they're old systems. Maybe you want to expand the program to other parts of the watershed than just Muskrat Lake. You could maybe spread it out over a few years. What I'm getting at is in the sewage treatment plant, a septic inspection program, the Watershed Council, and any other partnerships you want to create or initiatives that you're prepared to implement, do a 5-year plan. Because we got the sewage plant now, so you set it up so that you know that they won't pull the rug out of you from under you, and you set it up so that you're comfortable with it, and you're not going to be concerned that people will might have plans and then not be able to do them. So I think there's opportunity here to make it work. So yeah. And when it comes to the lake only has so much development potential. I think in my analysis there's about 8 or 9 kilometers of shoreline, which is a lot. But if you're looking at, the minimum is 45, but let's say 60 meters of shore, 200 feet of frontage for a lot, you might get 150 lots total on the lake. So maybe 150, 160. So if you're doing 10 lots a year, I mean, the lake will incrementally, it'll fill up, and there are people waiting for that that do want to develop on the lake.
So was it our proposal to have sewage inspection program, or is that what they're proposing?
It was included in the version that was adopted by council. The original idea. It was there. Well, all the ideas came from a letter that they submitted in the negotiations from the province. They basically sent us a letter summarizing all the opportunities or mechanisms that the township could use, and one of them was shoreline alteration bylaw. We looked at it and decided not to include it. But I mean, that's one opportunity. But I don't know if, and some of these measures do require staff resources too, right? So